Aloha and welcome to ThinkTech sponsoring Behind the Scenes and Beyond the Talk. My name is Rachel Jurgen and I am a TEDx production assistant, and with me I have...
My name is Genesis Leong and I'm also the lead curator for TEDxHonolulu. And so in this series, it's dedicated to showcasing the volunteers, speakers, and partners in the last upcoming TEDxHonolulu event. And that was the Paradigm Shift on March 28th.
Wonderful. And with us we have Valerie Rivera.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, we're really excited to have her. She's a native of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and she joined the Air Force in 2000. And she spent about 9 of the last 15 years stationed on the beautiful island of Oahu. When she's not leading some sort of movement, she's reading or exploring new restaurants or camping or hanging out with her 2 twin boys. So we're so happy to have you. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Yes, thanks so much for having me, Rachel.
So today we're going to go behind the scenes a little bit and learn more about the speaker team, learn about the process, and also a lot of the work that volunteers such as yourself had gone through in order to make this happen. So I guess we can get started by maybe learning more about you and how you got involved with TEDx.
So it's a funny story. I guess I actually met Genesis when I went to TED Active, which is a really, I call it the cool, hip, young people's TED conference. And it was held in Whistler, British Columbia. And before the conference, I reached out to see if there was anybody doing TEDx or TED anything here in Honolulu, and that's how I met Genesis. And so we met up, went out for an evening, and talked about all the different things, and then when we were at the conference, we hung out. And after that, she wrote me into helping her with TEDxHonolulu.
Yes, I know how that is.
And so tell us a little bit more about that, because I think people are familiar with TEDx and what it is, but there's a certain type of environment actually at TED Active. And tell us a little bit more about when us as organizers, the TEDx organizers, get together and what kind of energy comes off of that.
So I've been to a few conferences in my life, but I don't think anything really matches up to what we've found at TED Active. For example, they do such a good job connecting people before the event. One of the things they had was an app. So you would write down the kind of things that made you tick. So I'm Val Rivera. I'm a foodie. I'm a parent. I think big thoughts. I'm an ideas person. And then before the events, they actually matched me up with the top 10 people that had similarities with me, so that during the events, I could actually get in touch with them and network with them. And for me, that just made me feel like I was part of a community, not just a participant at a conference. And while we were there, I don't know, there was just this free-spirited fun, and you're with people that really kind of, I don't know, they're just passionate about life. So that was really neat.
That's great.
So actually, I just recently read the statistics, but since 2009, we've had over 13,000 TEDx events around the world, and within about 100 countries. So it's pretty amazing, a collection of people who are like-minded and also working towards the same cause.
Yeah, that's great.
So let's talk a little bit more about this year's TEDx event, because technically this is your first TEDx event.
Yes.
And was it what you expected, or tell us a little bit more about your thoughts about the TEDx event.
Okay, so let's see. When Genesis she put out the different ideas, the different jobs and roles that volunteers could have, I naturally was attracted to the speaker concierge role. First of all, it sounded like probably the least work of any of the jobs and the one that I was most qualified for. So I volunteered for that one, and I guess my initial idea of what I would be doing is just making the speakers feel comfortable the day of the event. But lo and behold, it was a lot more work than that. We actually ended up, from many, many months before the conference even started, we worked together figuring out, what is the application process going to be? What theme are we going after? How are we going to organize topics? And it was way more hands-on than I expected, but it was also really rewarding. I learned a lot about many different things, and I stretched and grew in ways that I didn't think possible.
What did you find unique and or challenging with TEDx? Because I know you've done other volunteer work and like you said, other conferences, but I found it to be a super unique experience, and I just wonder if you had a similar experience, and if so, how?
Well, I think for me, the main difference was the level of commitment. It was very clear that if I just decided not to do what I was on the hook to do, that something would really go wrong. I've mostly been involved with other volunteer events that are kind of like, if you show up, great, we can use your help, but if you're not there, like no big deal. So this time it was very apparent that you had to be 100% committed to the cause.
And because you were the speaker concierge, you had a really great relationship with the speakers, and maybe tell us a little bit more about that, because that's a very unique role, actually, in the fact that you're able to meet so many wonderful people here in Hawaii. And what did you like most about that role in that case?
So I would say even just starting when we were looking through the applications, we realized how many interesting people are here on island that have these great ideas. And it was really hard to pick through them and to see who was actually going to speak at TEDxHonolulu. And then getting to meet them in person, you feel like you already know so much about them. And then you meet them in person and you become friends, and you watch them progress from, you know, just sharing their ideas and being very kind of nervous about it to all the work and preparation they go through, and really this sense that you're really relying on each other to get to the end goal, which is the event itself.
Right. Can I ask, what was your first TEDx event or TED event? Was it the
It was
Whistler?
TED Active, yeah.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah, so how that got started, I guess I watched my first TED Talk online in 2010. And I loved it because, you know, I'm a mother of twin boys. I didn't have a lot of time for reading or exploring different ideas. And I was always wondering, when am I going to find that thing that I really love, like that topic that I'm really interested in? And it didn't seem like within the grind of my day that I would be able to do some of that important exploration. But when I started watching TED Talks, I realized here within like 18 minutes, I could get to know enough about a topic. Like I realized I'm just scraping the surface, but I could tell whether or not I was interested in it. And so from there, I could decide to do more research. And that's ultimately how I found what I was interested in life. So I'm really grateful.
Oh, really?
To TED for that.
Oh, that's incredible.
Do you remember what that TED Talk was?
So I have to say that Sir Ken Robinson's Do Schools Kill Creativity, I know it's on like all the top lists, but watching that one, I was like, preach it, you know, that, like, yes, that's what's
Same
happening.
here, yeah.
So,
Wonderful.
That's great. How about you, Genesis?
The first TED Talk? So I think the first TED Talk I watched was actually Philip Zimbardo, and it's really interesting because he was actually through the prison. There was I think it's Stanford prison experiment that had gone on many years ago, and it was really interesting to see what had happened through that scientific research in placing people into these particular roles. It's kind of a gruesome TED Talk, but it's actually the first one that I watched, and that was the start to it all, which is...
Wow. And you never thought you'd probably be here.
No, not at all, not at all. Did you
That's
have
great.
a favorite one?
I
Or
did,
first
actually.
favorite?
I have, as most of us do, I'm sure, so many, but I have to put that Ken Robinson, or Sir Ken Robinson, How Schools Kill Creativity. It just really inspired so much, but yeah, I can think of so many that I like, but that just, for me, it was the first one I saw, and I just thought, oh my gosh, you know, it was so captivating, and it just made me look at others, and of course they make the suggestions, and you know, you're like, oh yeah, that one looks good, oh, that one too, so.
You get kind of hooked on it, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we did talk in another segment a little bit about the volunteers and how this is kind of structured and broken down. But tell me a little bit more of your experience in working with other teams. It's such a huge structure that we have, whether it's a sustainability team, the speaker team, or the communications, sponsorships, but there's so many teams, and how important it is that we all work together for it.
Yeah, so my experience on the speaker team, I think, was really good because I worked with Genesis. I also worked with our speaker coach, Joe, he fine-tuned all the talks. And I think really between the three of us, we did a lot of just that communication that goes on with the speakers. You don't realize it, but there's so many questions people have, and you want to make sure that they're getting the answers they need at the right time. And there's so many little things, like you think, oh, you just go up on stage and you give your talk and that's that. But we start working with the speakers months in advance, making sure they know some of, the TED rules and also some great tips for public speaking in general. And really, I think one of the hardest things was getting their talks down to, the time limits that we had for them. Yeah, so that was pretty huge.
So do you do a job now that's kind of similar that helps you, or like how has your job helped you? Did it help you with TED or vice versa or both? Or?
I think it's a little bit of both. So after watching numerous TED Talks, I really kind of honed in on talent management. How do we find the best in people, in ourselves, and coming from that kind of angle. So one of the things I do in my job is try and find interesting ways to get people learning new skills. And bringing that to TED, the speaker team, was kind of interesting. I've been really trying to juice up my messages to people like, hey, you should come to this class because it's really interesting and you're going to learn these skills that you can apply right away. And that communication was really important when I was sending out as many emails as I was as part of the speaker concierge. I was like the email fairy. Like,
really?
how do I send out all this email information? How do I get people to read it so that they're informed and that we can get things done in a timely manner? So that was part of it, I'd say, for sure.
Wow. Genesis?
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say something.
I thought you were going to say
I did want to find out, though, did you have a paradigm shift through any of this, or have you seen people have a paradigm shift? Because that topic is so apropos for especially what you do, right? Trying to get people to learn new things, and they might have that in the midst of learning these things.
So I guess it was interesting because I learned a lot, actually, as I was dealing with the speakers, like seeing all of their new ideas. We had so many interesting things from a sustainability angle, from all over the place. And some of them really challenged the ideas and beliefs that I held and actually, made me shift a little bit. For example, I would say Andrea Anderson's talk touched me in a way that I didn't expect to, no pun intended. But, she talked about the words that we use for our bodies and our sexual selves, and I realized, wow, like maybe I could be doing things differently, especially being, a mother. Like, how do I talk to my kids about these important topics without making them seem taboo and making them seem like we can't communicate about that? And they're getting to an important age, and I feel like that's given me some tools that I can move forward with in my life. So I was really grateful for how she opened my eyes.
And actually, Andrea Anderson will be here next week, I believe. So definitely stay tuned for that. It's going to be a good show.
Yeah.
Very interesting. You might learn some more.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm game for it. So.
Yeah, that's why this show is great, because it allows us to not just go behind the scenes and be on the talk, and kind of just explore more some things, because they do have a very limited amount of time. So maybe there are some things that they touched on that they didn't really explore, or that they didn't even get to touch on. So
and, I think that's a really important point, Rachel, because one of the things I noticed as the speaker concierge, like we try and take a note of how are they feeling, like what are some of the challenges they're dealing with. And a lot of the speakers, they are experts in what they do. So when they're given like 7 minutes or 11 minutes to talk about a subject that they know so much on, it's really hard for them because they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm gonna give this talk, and it's so kind of like broad, and it leaves out so many important bits. And then my coworkers, other people in my field are gonna wonder, why didn't I touch on this important aspect, or this one, or that one, and why am I making things so simple when they're more complex? And I think that's one of the things our speakers were concerned about. And so when you watch their talks, I think just think about that. They are on a time limit, and they don't necessarily get to talk about everything that they would love to talk about.
That is a really good point. I hadn't really thought about that it's almost harder to limit it because they do have all this stuff that they want to explain, or you know, messages that they want to get out, or thoughts that they can't really, you know, fully get into. They, you know, have to make it concise. And
there is kind of a mix of emotions that come around this too. So we see them in their very vulnerable side. We see them when they're extremely happy. They just did a talk and it's all over. And we see them in being very empathetic towards each other. And so it's a really mix of emotions that we get to see, not just the talk and learn about the idea, but we see them as human beings. And I think that's something really special to share.
Too. Yeah, that was one thing I found being the stage manager. That was kind of was my role for this year's event on the day of. And just like you said, seeing them before, where they're, you know, they're professionals, so they're not nervous, but definitely before you speak in front of a lot of people, of your peers, of others, you know, they were definitely a little, you know, some of them a little shakier than others, and then they get off and they're just beaming, and and they're encouraging others, and it's just a really neat process. So I can imagine, especially all the way leading up, it's like they're your children almost, you know, you're helping them develop and grow. So we're going to explore more about that when we get back. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you shortly.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Aloha, Yappers. This is your host, Kingsley, for the Yap Show. Every Friday, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch us here live, ThinkTech Hawaii, and then later on we upload to our YouTube channel. We talk about youth issues, policies, youth programs, and how to transition yourself into adulthood.
But this was like a sign, I guess. Hey, Mike's like, hey, now's your chance to go back to school, which I'm doing.
Catch us here again live, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Hawaii Standard Time. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Miley Scarpino, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Keith.
My name's Keith Bettinger.
I knew that.
And I'm the host of ThinkTech Asia.
I knew that too.
Here on ThinkTech.
Fabulous. You got a great show going, Keith.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers out there that are interested in ThinkTech Asia, it airs every Tuesday from 4 to 4:45, and it can be accessed online at thinktech.com.
Yeah, so what kind of guests you like?
Well, we have a number of guests from academia, from practitioners of international affairs. Sometimes we have military officials. Sometimes we have public officials on the show. And our goal, we try to talk about current issues in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Central Asia, all throughout the Asian realm in more depth than you would find in traditional mainstream
That's the
media.
difference, isn't it?
Exactly.
That you're reaching out beyond what ordinary news media would do.
Right.
That's why we like you so much.
We're trying to provide a thinking person's perspective, an intelligent perspective on what's going on, and we're both sides of the story, or even when there's more than two sides, we try to cover every angle. And I think that's one of the big benefits that we provide here at ThinkTech. Is it's a really innovative source of educational programming for the people of Hawaii.
You're great, Keith. You are a great host. You got a great show going on. I watch it every week.
Thanks very much.
Why don't you guys watch it every week too, okay?
4:45 to 4 to 4:45 every Tuesday.
Welcome back to Behind the Scenes and Beyond the Talk. We're talking with Valerie Rivera today, the speaker concierge. We're picking her brain and finding out about the TEDxHonolulu experience, and especially from a very active volunteers standpoint, a very active person in general. You had brought a lot to the table. So right now we wanted to find out a little bit more about your role this year in particular.
So I guess once Genesis made the decision for us to have the event in March, we really started planning that day forward. We did a lot of our planning online via Google, what is it called again?
Google Hangouts.
Google Hangouts, oh my goodness. So that saved us a lot of driving time, I will say. But we first started off talking about the theme, paradigm shift, and really defining what that was. So for us, it was those aha moments that are life-changing for you. And from there, we wanted to figure out what kind of topics we wanted for the event itself. So we actually had a volunteer event where we brought the volunteers together and we talked about what would you like to see during TEDxHonolulu, and do you have ideas for people in the local community that you would like to hear more from? And then from there, we also put it into broad topics. So when we were talking about paradigm shifts, we were talking about education, we were talking about sustainability, so that was the environment perspective. We also looked at technology and community and a few other topics. And that helped us shape what our application process was going to look like.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. I never thought of it starting that far back, you know, even just getting applicants and such.
Yeah.
So do you have a certain amount in each category that you?
That's kind of, you know, we don't put a cap on it, but what we did was we put the application out there, and it's just a Google form that people use where they articulate what their idea worth spreading is. They also let us know what topic category they think that they would fall into, how much time they would need to give their talk, and also a quick bio, like what qualifies you to talk about this? Like what experiences do you have that are unique, that make you stand out? We really look for people to catch our attention in the application. And from there, after everything's closed out, the rest of the speaker team, we all met together and we took a look at the different ideas and we figured out what are our top 25. What are we really interested in seeing more and hearing more about? And from there, we actually asked those people to audition live in front of us. So they had 5 minutes to take that idea that they wrote down on paper and share it with us.
And I wanted to add as well is with our speakers, we're not necessarily going through our black book and choosing people that we know that we're putting on stage. We're actually opening up the process and we're trying to figure out who are these gems out there that we may not have crossed paths with. And so with us taking this extra step and reaching out to people and putting the applications out there, it takes a lot longer and it actually takes more work, but definitely worth putting out there to give people the opportunity to tell us who they are.
Yeah. I don't think it would really work out good any other way. I mean, so for us, we have the TEDxHonolulu.org website, and when people subscribe to that, they get information about, you know, hey, we're putting out the call for the next TEDxHonolulu speakers. You know, if you put your name on there, then you get an email when those kind of things are coming out. We also try and use our social media resources to get the word out so that people all across the island can submit their applications and have that shot at being a speaker.
Or islands, have we gotten anyone from off island?
We actually have,
Oh, great.
So one speaker from, we had 2 speakers this year, but one was Ian, and he actually lives in California. And also we had Shane, who's over on Maui.
Great, great. So it's not so inclusive, it's not just our island, it's any of the islands on Oahu. So if people go to the website now, they can kind of get put on on a list or something so that they get sent emails off island, wherever?
Yep, it doesn't matter where you are.
Great.
So we kind of left off where we submitted the applications, we narrowed them down, and then we took another really big step into actually having people audition for the TEDx speaker position. Tell us a little bit more about that, because that was a pretty intense day. Our brains were just overloaded with so many wonderful ideas here in Hawaii. But tell us a little bit more about that.
So I would say, imagine this. You have one day to hear people speak, 25 different people speak about their idea. So it was kind of mostly like a logistical thing. We had to make different blocks for each of the speakers, about 15 minutes for each speaker, just to give them the overview of what we're doing, and 5 minutes to speak, and then some feedback for them. So that was really intense. Like, trying to stay on time was important, but also trying to make sure that they got the information they needed. And I mean, you just see people, they're just so grateful for the opportunity to get there and share their idea. And I mean, for a lot of them, this was like a dream, like something in their bucket list. And that was really interesting.
That is, wow, how neat. How many people would you say were there? Like, how many I know you have to call down the ones that you even get before they even can come for that process, but do you remember how many it was approximately on that day?
We had about 25 people.
Neat.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when the applications first came in, there were well over 80 applications.
Wow.
And then from there, we had to narrow it down to the 25. And then after we went through that process, we had to narrow it down once again. And tell us a little bit more about that.
So that was actually, I'd say, one of the hardest things to do is send out those letters that say, hey, your idea was great, but unfortunately, we can't pick everybody. And so, you're not making the cut this year. And that tugs at my heartstrings, because nobody likes rejection. It's not a good thing. So it was really rough. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Wow, that sounds rough. We're going to talk more to Valerie in a few minutes. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, I'm Ethan Allen. I host Likeable Science on ThinkTech Hawaii, and I do this because I care about science literacy in Hawaii. I want to spread the understanding that science is a vital and interesting part of everyone's life. I want to make sure the broadest possible spectrum of people understand the beauty and the value of science and realize that science plays out each and every day of their lives. I want you to understand that science is fun. So we bring onto this show each week guests who are scientists, from astronomers to zoologists, and we talk about what they do and how they do it. But most importantly, we talk about why you should care about their work, why you should see that their work has value and impact on your life. So I hope you'll join us Fridays, 1 p.m. here on ThinkTech Hawaii. You can watch us via live stream. You can watch us recorded on Olelo, and you can see us each week. We hope you'll join us.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidel. That's Ted Ralston. Ted is the host of Where the Road Leads. It shows every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. It's about technology. It's about how people collaborating and solve problems with modern technology. It's where the road leads. We all know that. We should all be listening. Join us there, 4 to 5 p.m. every Friday. Now, what about that do you agree with?
All of it.
I knew he'd say that. Aloha. Say aloha.
Aloha.
Good.
Hi, my name is Seymour Kazimirski. I have a show called Seymour's World on ThinkTech Hawaii. Our show is about opening minds and facilitating conversations. To tell you the truth, I have no idea what we're going to be talking about. I have no idea who our guests are going to be, but I guarantee you we're going to have lots and lots of fun. Aloha from Seymour's World.
My name is
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island in the ER position. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the ThinkTech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Aloha and welcome back. Just to remind you that you can tweet us at any time at ThinkTech and we'd love to hear from you. Now we're going to talk again to Valerie Rivera and hear a little more about the day of the event. So is there anything you can tell us about what it was like to be behind the scenes with the speakers on the day of? Finally, it comes after all of this preparation.
Absolutely. So it is a very busy day, and it starts off really, really early. We have a small room on the side of the stage, and there we laid out, like, I just try to figure out what kind of things would make me feel comfortable if I were gonna be on the stage with everybody. So we had water, we had fruit, we had granola bars, we had like floss and nail clippers, just like random things that you might need in a pinch. And so from there, that's where we would gather, but it was also a really hard place to watch the talks from. We had just a little teeny window, and we're just kind of smashing our faces up against it and trying to see what was going on out there. But it was also really fun. So one of my favorite memories was just a few of our speakers getting together, and one was leading the other two in vocal exercises, which if you've ever seen those before, they're really funny. It's just like lots of tongue twisters and things like that. So it was just one of my fondest memories of the day.
Definitely. And so there's a lot that happens on stage and behind the stage as well. But tell us a bit more about the speakers and what kind of experience that not only are we providing for them, but also what are we asking for them in return? That might be different from any other conference that they've ever been to.
And I imagine a lot of times people are asked to speak at a conference, and they prepare their slides, they show up the day of the event, they give their talk, their presentation, and then they leave, and that's pretty much it. At TEDxHonolulu, we actually ask for a lot more interaction with our speakers because we're trying to cultivate community. And so we ask our speakers to stay the entire day of the event, not only so that they can hear other people's talks, but that they're able to provide the support to their fellow speakers, and also so that people in the community can interact with them and find out a little bit more, ask those questions, maybe make those connections that are going to make our community just that much stronger. I can give you one good example. Hayden Atkins, he actually had the first bike-powered TEDx talk. It was really cool. So what Hayden does is they have these bikes that generate electricity. And while he was giving his talk, he had his brother on stage riding this bike that was powering the lights and some of the audio and some of the other things. And during the rest of the event, he left the bike there so that audience members could actually ride and help power the talks. Because a big part of what we're about is sustainability, especially with our island life. So I think that's one great example. He just went above and beyond. So he was working with the sustainability team to make that happen. And that's some of the cross-team interaction that you see with this TEDxHonolulu event.
And I think what's really kind of amazing about Hayden is that he put an extra push into not just providing the experience, but he actually helped power almost the entire event. I think the only thing that he didn't power with the bikes was probably the safety lights and some other lights that we couldn't tap into. Everything from the equipment from the productions team, the lighting, our computers, everything was powered by Hayden's ideas. So now we're not just putting ideas on stage, but we're actually putting ideas into action.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there were audience members who were excited to jump up on the bike and help power it. And
yeah, I think we put a lot of thought into the interactivity of the whole event. Like, how can our attendees not just be passive audience members? How can they, interact with people, get a chance to try some of these things out? And you saw that with some of our booths too. Another one of our speakers, Brandon Hayashi, he talked about blue light and how that can actually damage our circadian rhythms. And as one of the fun surprises, I think he FedExed a bunch of these blue light blocking glasses, and like the day before the event, he's hastily like taping them under the chairs so that people have that nice, fun surprise. But that takes a lot of commitment. You know, he's working on his talk, but he's also taping these glasses under chairs the day before.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite a amazing opportunity he gave out to everyone to try these glasses and really see how just the blockage of that light and how that changes our health and how we sleep. And definitely it's well worth trying out.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so a lot of these talks that we talked about, so Hayden and Andrea and Brandon, a lot of these can be seen on our website at TEDxHonolulu.org. You can learn more about them, and also if you're interested in becoming a speaker, you can always check out our website.
Yeah.
So I think what's really great is that you've had this really great experience, but we definitely want to learn more about you and what's next now for you. You've gone through the experience, you learned so much more, probably things you'll never forget. May want to, but may never forget. But what's the next step now for you? You've got this really great experience that we went through. We're so lucky to have you a part of our team. But what's next with you?
I feel like TEDx Honolulu is always going to be in my heart, but I've got actually a big move coming up. I am going to move to California. I'm trying to get into grad school right now and follow some of my passions, things I'm really interested in. So what I really want to do with my life is figure out how to make bureaucracies better places for people to work in. So how do we make that, you know, more exciting, tear down some of those walls and the red tape, and make those kind of places, especially government organizations, places where we actually enjoy working.
Wow, that's a really specific niche. Is there, is this something that you just created, or is this currently a field out there, or have you just kind of shifted the paradigm?
I'm not sure if it's a field per se, but definitely from watching some of the TED Talks, I went on to do further reading, and one of my favorite books is Dan Pink's book, Drive, The Surprising Truth About What Motivates Us. And that it really resonated with me. And he also has a TED Talk that is great if you want to watch it, but he talks a lot about autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And when I think about those things, purpose is just like the big picture, like why you do what you do and contributing to something larger than yourself. Mastery is that sense that you're getting better at something that matters, like you're making progress. And autonomy is having that sense of self-direction. So if we can create environments where people have these things, they ultimately go on to do better work. So it doesn't matter what the field is, it allows people to reach their highest potential. That's what I believe, and that's what I want to figure out how to do more of.
That's great.
So if you had an opportunity to do a TED Talk, would this be the topic that you would talk about, or would you have another topic you would talk about?
So yeah, I think it would be along those lines. Obviously, I don't want to like just regurgitate what Dan Pink talked about, but you know, maybe talk about some of the challenges in making that happen in bureaucratic and hierarchical work environments. But you know, I think there's definitely got to be some lessons learned or some little shred of something different that could help somebody else.
And that's just really interesting that bureaucracies and government agencies would even consider taking this on as a position or even as a consultant's role or something. I think that's great, you know, and you're probably at the beginning of that field, you know, so that's great. You can write your own kind of rule book, you know?
Yeah, and you know, I think that's something that just being involved with TED, whether you're watching the talks or you're going on to do a TEDx event or going to one of the conferences, you realize what it's like when people are passionate about what they do. It's such a different, it's like a whole shift from the regular everyday, I'm just going here to make a buck so I can live and do this another day. It's really about, man, how can we change the world? How can we make this a better place for us, for our children, for our families? And honestly, being with TEDsters, which is what we call ourselves, is really re-energizing for me. You know, it gives me that strength to go out there when it feels like nothing's going your way and, you know, what am I doing here? But then you talk to your fellow TEDsters and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna introduce you to somebody and we're gonna go out there and we're gonna do stuff. So
Right, and I think what's really great and amazing about the TED conferences is that when you meet someone, it's not, hi, I'm so-and-so and I work at so-and-so place and I do this. It's, our questions are, oh, hi, I'm Genesis, and well, what are you passionate about?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what we talk about. And lo and behold, the people that are actually at these conferences are a part of large organizations making huge changes, or multi-million-dollar startups. It's just, we're a part of so many great things, but what it comes down to in our hearts is, what are you passionate about? That's what we want to learn about you.
Right. Yeah, and it's about pulling that out of you, because a lot of the volunteer experience, you just know that TED is cool. Oh, I love TED Talks. They're here. That sounds great. I'd love to be involved. And then you go and you don't really know, well, I'm a people person. Maybe I'd be good with this. But part of it is the exploration of it, you know, and the fact that you can, you know, cross-train or try this out and help. And these two teams, I think you were mentioning that earlier. Who would think that the speaker team would have anything to do with the sustainability team? But you did, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so any tips that you would have for people who are interested in becoming a volunteer, or anything that you would recommend for people?
So, that's a good question. For volunteers, I would say think about what you really want to spend a lot of time on, where you feel like you have some talent, because you are going to be using that talent and, you know, maybe even going beyond what you thought you could do. So that's definitely one of my tips. And also be really reliable and dependable, because we are an all-volunteer organization, so we don't have any paid employees that are going behind the scenes to make sure stuff happens. You just got to be there, be present, and help your people, because people are relying on you.
Definitely.
So, are you going to help out at TEDx? Fill in the blank. Where are you going in California?
So I think I'm either going to San Francisco or Palo Alto, not really sure yet, but that actually, it gives me a lot of comfort to know that there are other TEDsters out there, and I can meet them, and I can make some fast friends and get involved with some other TEDx events, and you know, it just makes me feel like there's no place that's that far from home.
Right. It is very much a sense of community and you know, family when you kind of are a part of it in any way, I find.
Yeah. And even just within our team alone, we have a few people that are within that area. So another one of our team members are also back at Stanford, and we have Ian, who's works at Stanford. So it's really kind of amazing that even though we're quite a distance away, we still find each other, and even within our teams itself.
Yes. Well, we're about to wrap it up, but we just wanted to thank you so much for your time and for your service. And it's, as always, great to be with you ladies again. And yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
And
we're
great
going to
luck.
miss you.
I'm going to miss you too.
Sure
this
will.
was so much fun. Thanks for
so
inviting me.
much.